Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel today. I'm your host Sanj, and in this video I've got something really exciting for you, okay? This is something that I've wanted to build for a while because I've seen YouTube channels in the horror space, in the horror movies kind of genre, absolutely crushing it, right? Like the example I'm going to show you in this video of a channel that's making anywhere between $80,000 to $110,000 per month. That's just from the YouTube ad revenue share, okay? They're not even selling any courses or merchandise or anything else, so you can actually increase that revenue. But 100,000 a month, 1.2 million a year is not too shabby, right? And what's great about this automation is that it's completely locally hosted on NA10, okay? It's not going to cost you a dime. It's not going to cost you a single cent, right? And it's completely automated end to end. So this is one that I've been super excited to bring to you. I wanted to build it for a long time, and I've actually done it using no code, but more importantly, it doesn't cost you a dime. Okay, so strap yourselves in and let's build this puppy. I wanted to show you one of my favorite YouTube channels, which is Dr. Nightmare, okay? And he has 6.8 million subscribers. There's about 200 odd videos, and there's nothing spectacular about this, okay? So I picked this one because it has 29 million views. So let's just go ahead and play this.
This is something you guys have been requesting the hell out of for a long time. It took a lot of time, but I finally found 3 stories that take place during school lockdowns.
Again, nothing spectacular about this.
It was a typical boring day in calculus, only...
And what's interesting is that the images that he's using for the videos, right? These are actual images of schools, of, playgrounds, that kind of stuff, right? And you can easily replace this with AI. And it's not even that long, right? So it's just over 11 minutes. I wanted to show you some stats around this channel, okay? So I'm using ViewStats because this is MrBeast's own personal SaaS tool. And the reason I've gone ahead with MrBeast is because he is the biggest creator on YouTube, right? Which means, at least to me, is that he's got unprecedented access, API access to YouTube. And I think what he's displaying on his app is about as accurate as anybody's ever going to get, right? So this has 6.8 million subscribers. It gets about 15 million views every 28 days. They made 30,000 subscribers in the last 30 days. But this is what's interesting, right? The estimated revenue, which is between 39 to 111K. I expect it's more on the higher end than the lower end. And he's even got a breakdown of the channel. Okay, so you can see that they're getting anywhere between 200 to 700,000 views per day. And it's got the estimated revenue range. Now, for a channel this big, I would expect it to have a revenue of between 80 to 100,000, okay? Because I do work with clients that have YouTube channels that have less subscribers than this and are doing 80 to 100,000. So I would be surprised if they are doing anything less than $100,000 dollars per month. Okay, so a lot of useful information in here, and like I said, there's nothing spectacular about what they're doing. If I just click inside of the profile here, I'm just going to turn this off. They've got 440 videos, which you can replicate very, very easily, very, very quickly using the AI automation that I'm about to show you, okay? So before I dive in, there's a few requirements for this. So the first thing we need is we've got to set up OpenRouter and use MetaLlama, okay? Now, like I said to you in the intro of this video, this automation is completely free. It doesn't cost you a dime, okay? And because we're going to use some applications and services and language models that are free, they don't cost a dime to use, okay? The next thing we need to do is we need to install Kokoro and the YTDLP libraries inside of the Docker container. Okay, so Kokoro is what I'm going to use for the voiceover, and the YTDLP library just allows you to download videos from YouTube if you're gonna host this yourself. Okay, so you only need to do this if you are using NA10 local. The next thing we're going to do is set up a Together AI account because I'm going to use Flux Chanel, which is it's a free version of Flux. So Flux is an image creator, and if you haven't used it before, it's basically one of the best on the market there. But Flux Pro is quite expensive because it uses a lot more tokens, but the output is incredible, right? But Flux Chanel is completely free, and it's one you can get started with, and it produces a great output. And I'll show you what the video that I've created looks like, okay? And the last thing is have fun and make some spooky videos. Okay, so test different prompts, and go out there, post it on YouTube and see how it does. The automation uses 2 AI agents. Okay, The first one is the video generator, and the second one is the prompt generator, okay? Because I want to automate the entire process. I'm not feeding it with any data. I'm just going to use the AI agent to basically generate the outputs for me, okay? And then it creates the voiceover here, as you can see, with a HTTP request. It then creates the Flux image. It then downloads the image. I'm using two read and write nodes because this is a locally hosted automation, okay? Because it's not costing anything, I have to locally host it. If you are doing this on the cloud using the N8N cloud service, which is the paid service, you don't need to use these, okay? Because it's already hosted on their cloud. You can just download it using a HTTP request. And then I'm gonna download some background music so I can use that for the video. And then I'm gonna get all the assets, so the voiceover, the images, the download and the background music, and then I'm gonna create the final video, okay? And this is what it looks like. So I'm just gonna open this module here, and then I'll show you. Let me just turn my headset off so you can pick up the sound on the Mac. And we'll start that again, okay? So
the darkness outside seemed to press against the windows, making the dim light within feel fragile. I had been driving for hours, but the GPS insisted I was still miles from my destination. The road unwound before.
I mean, that's pretty good, right? You have to admit that's a really damn good, completely free, completely automated horror, right? And I've decided to use a British accent because I'm British myself. But most importantly, what I've noticed is that these kind of horror videos, they tend to use a kind of creepy, certainly male, older British voice, okay? But you can test this with any voice that you want, and I'll show you how you select that inside of Kokoro, okay? So without further ado, let's dive right in and build this. So as I mentioned at the start of this video, you are going to need Kokoro and YTDLP installed in Docker, okay? And I've actually created a quick document to show you how to do this. Now I'm using a Mac. I've installed Docker on my Mac, so this is all done through the terminal, okay? I'm sure it's something similar on a Windows PC, so have a look at that. But this is generally the process that we need, okay? And remember, this is installed locally, which is why you need to do this. Okay, so let's go ahead and create a new automation. The first trigger I'm going to use is the schedule trigger, and I'm just going to assume that we're going to run this every hour or maybe once a day or whatever you want to do, right? You typically probably want to do it once a day if you are doing, say, like a 10 to 20 minute video, okay? Because it's going to take some time to generate that. So, and uploading one video a day is certainly enough. You know, that's 300 videos a year. More than enough, right? But you can schedule this however you want, okay? So we're gonna put that there. And then if I go back to the original, the next thing you wanna do is you want the basic LLM chain, okay? So go into the next module here, just type in LLM, should bring it up, and it's this one here, okay? And we're gonna do define below. And what did I call this? I'm gonna grab some things from here because I already created it. But this is just gonna be create video. Okay, so create video, and I'm just going to grab something from here. So the prompt is just going to be, you know, create a 2-minute horror story, and I've kept that 2 minutes because I'm doing this as a demonstration on YouTube. Okay, if I was to go into production, if I was to go live and do this, I would actually make these as long as possible. Okay, so anywhere between, you know, 10 to 20 minutes, because that's what I've seen in, you know, other horror channels, and it seems to work really well. So the best performing video on Dr. Nightmare is about 11 minutes. Okay, so just bear that in mind, and you want to definitely, you know, have this toggled on, require specific output format, and I'll show you why in a second. Okay, but the next thing we need is the system prompt. Okay, so I'm going to grab this because I spent a bit of time on this. You know me, when it comes to prompts, I like to go in, you know, kind of get into the weeds, and I don't like to rush it, okay, because the output is generated by the quality of your inputs, okay? So for the system prompt is, you are a storytelling AI trained in the art of psychological horror. Your role is to generate a full-length horror narrative tailored to a specified duration in minutes. It's probably not really create video, it's probably more kind of create the storyboard, story outline. So you can rename that accordingly. I've just kept it create video. And the instructions are, do not include a title, estimated time, or any formatting cues. Now, if you wanted to automate this completely and upload it into YouTube, then you would want to include a title and a description as well. But for the sake of this demonstration, I haven't done that. output only uninterrupted story as a plain text, no headers or footnotes. Okay. Again, if you want captions in the videos, which I would recommend, use some kind of scary horror type fonts. It's going to work really well. And then I've given it some other parameters, instructions here. So focus on mood-driven suspense, subtle dread, and lingering tension. Again, this is based on what I've seen on Dr. Nightmare and other channels. Okay. Avoid graphic violence or gore because that's just going to get banned on YouTube. It's probably not going to get uploaded, or if you do upload it, it's probably going to get unlisted. Okay. Emphasize unease through setting, suggestion, and atmosphere. So remember, you can't use violence, you can't use gore. Certainly watch for profanity, right? These kind of things. You want to just focus more on suspense, light, mood, that kind of stuff, right? If a user provides a theme or scenario, use it to shape the narrative settings and antagonist. Okay. If none is given, default to timeless horror backdrop. So again, I've just put this in there because I can actually give it some inputs, right? So if you look at my previous videos, I do actually plug in, content or seed content from, places like Google Sheets. So I have built that into there. I haven't done it for this video because I just want to keep it as short as possible. And also, this is an offline, a locally hosted workflow, okay, which means that there are certain limitations when it comes to things like this. So I just want to keep it as simple as possible, remove all the friction points. And then final output, only return the horror story itself, no introductions, quotes, or explanations. Okay, so we just want to kind of dive right in, be as direct as possible, and just get straight into the weeds of the story. Okay, so that's all we're going to do. And we have a specific output, and I'll show you that in a sec. But the next thing you want to do is you want to install the OpenRouter node. Okay, so if you haven't got a credential for OpenRouter, just head over to openrouter.ai. Okay, sign up for a free account with your Gmail, and then you can just go to, if you just take you back to the settings here, click on your profile here at the top, go to keys, and it should take you to API keys. Just create a key and just copy the API key, and then all you need to do there is you just paste it here where it says API key. If it's worked, if the connection is successful, you'll see this green box here and it'll tell you that. Okay, and then for the actual model, I'm not going to use Fora Mini because that's a paid model. You're going to need some credits in your account. The one that you want is called Meta Llama 4 Maverick Free. Right now, you can use any of these. I found Maverick generates a great output, as you saw in the video. You could also just type in free here, see what comes up. I mean, there's a few others here. There's Shisha, which is Llama 7TB. It's an older version. You've got Qwen, which is Alibaba, I believe. There's a few others there. DeepSeek Chimera is free as well. But I just went ahead and used the Meta one for this, which is Maverick 4. Okay, that's completely free. You don't need any credits. You don't need a subscription for that. Okay. The next thing you want to do is you want a structured output parser, and the reason for that is because the text is going to be outputted as an object, and I don't want that. I want it as just a text variable, which I can then use downstream in the workflow. Okay, so for that, I've got some JSON code. So if I come out of this, I'll show you what that looks like. So if I go inside of here, it's just this here. Okay, so the variable is called text, and it's just a full horror story as plain text. That's all I wanted, right? Now you can put anything in here. It's just I've just used a placeholder because when I run the automation, it's just going to replace that. Okay, so let's just paste that here, and you can leave it as it is. Okay, and just line these up, and then you're good to go on to the next part of the automation. So the next node is going to be the HTTP request because we want to create the voiceover. Okay, so just find the HTTP request node. Okay, and I'm just going to rename this to create voiceover. Okay, I'm going to grab some things from the original. So it's this module here. So like I said, I'm actually using Kokoro, okay, which is Fast API. And the reason I'm using this is because it's completely free, okay? And the voiceovers are pretty good. So this is a post method, okay? The URL is here, and then we want to grab a few more things from the body. So it's going to be JSON, and the specified body is also JSON. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna copy this and I'll explain what this does, okay? So we want body, JSON, and we want to select the JSON for the specified body. Let me just open this up. I'm going to paste this here, go into expression to show you what that does. So you can see it. So basically this is the output text. So if I go back into the original, it's just basically from the create video LLM chain, and then it's created a variable that I've assigned it. Okay, and it's gonna save it as a variable instead of an object, okay, which is just a bit more technical. An object is just like an array. It's like a table. It's just harder to work with. It's just easier to export all this text because this is the narrative, okay, for that video that I created. Okay, the one that I showed you at the start of the video, of this video, and I want to save this all as a text variable. Okay, everything else, the voice is George, BM George. Now, if you want to know what other voices you can use, if you head over to Hugging Face and go into Spaces, you can find Hexgrad Kokoro, which is the language model I'm using for this, and these are all the different voices that you can use. Okay, so I went ahead with George, which is a British accent, but you've got American as well. You can test all these out. You can test out in here. So if you just type in something like this, I just put in some input text, create generate, and then it'll basically output it here, and you can test whichever one that you like. Okay. The response format is MP3 because it's sound, and then everything else is just technical stuff to do with pitch, normalization, etc., etc. You don't really need to know about this. The most important thing here is the model is Kokoro. We're using George, which is BM_George. The output is MP3 because it's audio, and we're getting a text from the previous module, which is create video. Okay, we're going to use that to generate the audio, the voiceover. Okay. And then what we need to do is, once we have the voiceover, because again, remember, this is a locally hosted automation, I need to download and write write the voices, save it somewhere. Okay, so for that, I'm going to use the read write to disk. Okay, and so if I click this here and just type in write, which is this one here. Okay, and this one is write file to disk. So what did I call this? I called it write voiceover. Okay, so let's just rename that, keep it all consistent. Write voiceover. And then for the output, I've just given it a drive. Okay, so for this, I've called it /horror_voice.mp3. The input is binary, which is data, which is just this field here, which, I mean, it's technically an object from the create voiceover node. Okay, so I'm going to copy this, and it's worked because you've got an output here. Okay, and this is saved locally. So let's just save this here. Remember to test it and save it at every step. And that's it. That's all you need here. Okay. And then the next node is another basic LLM chain. And this time we're going to create the image prompts. Okay. Or the image prompts. Now I've only used one image, but if you're going to go into production, for each scene in the narration, you want to have a separate image. Okay. And piece it all together, which you can do with this automation. Okay. So let's head over here. Let's just add a basic chain. So I'm just going to type in LLM, and it's this one here, basic chain. Let's just rename this to create image prompt. And then I'm just going to grab a few things from here. So we're going to use the text from the create video. Okay, so if I go down to create video, it's just this field here, this dynamic field. Okay, so you can just copy and move that across. I'm gonna run it in the build, so I'm gonna copy this. It's worked because it's green. So let's define this below, paste that there. And the next thing we want to do is you want to grab the system prompt. Okay, so I'm just gonna open this up, grab this here, and let's add a system prompt. Let's go into expression so you can see it. I'll explain what this does. Okay, so you are an AI designed to transform horror story transcripts into vivid cinematic image prompt, ideal for use with AI image generators such as Flux. Right, if you're using any other image generator, just put that into the prompt just to give it some context. Okay, for this I'm using Flux Schnell because, like I said earlier, it is free. Okay, so the instructions are: carefully read the entire horror story provided by the user or provided by the AI agent. I've just put in user here because it just keeps it quite simple, right? And you can actually plug in your own. So you're gonna have a chat, like a chat trigger, and you're gonna type in, give me a horror story based on XYZ, and then based on that, you can actually, use the AI to then develop a complete storyline around that. Identify the single most visually striking or emotionally intense moment that defines the horror tone. Create one atmospheric and descriptive image prompt based on that moment. Emphasize mood, setting, lighting, unsettling visual cues. That's what makes a great horror channel or a great horror video, okay? Do not reuse any lines from the story or include quotes, commentary, or explanation. Output only the image prompt, no labels, no extra words, no formatting. It has to be direct, it has to be scary, spooky, lighted. The lighting is very important, and you just want to get straight to the point. This is not a Disney video, right? It's not, you don't need to set a scene, you don't need to kind of give it some context. With horror movies, with horror videos, it just goes kind of straight to the point. And that's how they deliver their experience, right? Example, a decaying Victorian manor under a blood-red sky, shattered windows, casting eerie shadows across the overgrown courtyard as something moves behind the curtain. Again, it doesn't set the scene, there's no context, right? It just goes straight to the point. And that's actually quite intriguing, right? Like, what's behind the curtain, right? And this is, I've just seen on another video, I just typed this in myself. It can be any example that you choose to give it, okay? And so when that's done, let's just move this over. Right, we're going to select the same video, the same language model. So go to OpenRouter, okay, and just type in Meta Maverick, okay. And like I said, it is free. And just line this up when you're happy with it. Okay, so we're done with that. So now what do we need to do next? So let's go back to the original just to show you. So now we have everything. So we've got the story, the narrative, we've got the voiceover, we've got the image prompts. Now we can create the image. Okay, so this is going to be another HTTP request node. So let's just add that HTTP request, and I'm just going to grab the endpoint. Okay, so for this we're going to use Together because it's free. Fluxional on that is absolutely free. The endpoint is generations. So let's just copy that and paste that here. It's a post, don't forget that. So let's just change that to post. Okay, and we do need some things in here. Okay, so we're going to use authentication generic credential type. The auth type is header, and then I've created an auth connection inside of Together API. I'll show you how to do that. Okay, so let's just go into here, select post. Authentication is generic. The auth type is header, and it's Together API. Okay, so if you haven't done that, just create a new credential. And then what you want to do is, for the name, you want to type in authorization. Okay, pay attention to the capitalization, and it's also using the American spelling of authorization. Okay, and then the value, you want to get that from your Together dashboard. Okay, so head over to together.ai, sign up for a free account, and then go to dashboard. Okay, and your API is here. Okay, so copy this string, but before you do that, you just need to type in bearer. Okay, so the way you do that is just change this to expression, type in bearer with a capital B, space, and then paste in your API key as you see it inside of Together. Okay, that's all you need to do. Save it. I decided to call mine Together AI, so I know what it is. So I'm not going to save that because I already have it here as Together API, Together AI. And then the last thing you want to do is you want to toggle body on. The body type is JSON. The specified body is also JSON. And then this is where we tell it what we wanted to use inside of Together. Okay, so I'll explain that shortly, but let me just set this up on this side. So we'll create flux image. I believe that's what I called it. Yeah, create flux image for the name. And then we want to set this to JSON. We'll change this to expression so you can see it, and I'll paste it in here. So the model we're using is Fluxional. Like I said, it's free, and the output's good enough, right? If you want to test it, it's good enough. If you want to go into production, you can also switch over to a paid generative AI module like Flux Pro, okay, which is easily one of the best, probably if not the best, image generation tool on the market. Okay, and everything else, this is just the technical information around the image, right? These are dimensions of 1440 by 1440. And the most important thing for you is the output. It's going to be a JPEG, and the prompt is coming from the previous node, okay? Which is this one here. So the create image all you're doing basically is, if I go inside of here, it's just dragging this and pasting it here. Okay, that's all you're doing. And you know it's worked because it's green. Make sure you test a step. When you tested it, you're going to get something like this. It's going to bring out an output like this. Okay, so you're going to have an image that you can, that's actually been created. And so the next thing to do is, the image has been created, so now we can download the image. Okay, so what you want to do is head over to HTTP request again. This time it's a get, but we don't need any headers or anything like that. We don't need any authorization because we're just going to pull the URL. Okay, so all you got to do is where it says create Flux image, where you have the URL dynamic field, you just copy and drag and drop that over here. That's all I've done. Okay, you know it's worked because it's green and it's got the URL below it. So I'm going to get this, copy this and paste it here, and then just rename this to download image. Okay, and that's it. Make sure you test it and save it. And then we've got a few more nodes now. The next thing you want to do is you have the image now. So similar to the voiceover, we want to save that. Okay, we want to save that to disk. So let's head out and move this across again. So this time we're going to find the write node, the read write node. We're going to write file to disk, and you just set the, oh not this one, sorry. You just set the file path. Okay, so for this one, I've just called it /horror_image. You can call it whatever you want. You just make sure that you know what it's called, because we're going to need to reference it later downstream in the workflow. Okay, and you know it's worked because you've got the output here. The binary is just the data from the download image. Very, very straightforward. Okay, so let's call this one write image, and then I'm going to save this to disk as /horror_image.jpg. okay, then once we've done that, let me just move over here and zoom in a bit so you can see it. Right, the next thing I want to do is we want to download some background music. Okay, so I've already done that. I've actually got a command for this. The most important thing here is we're using the YTDLP libraries, right? We want audio format. I want to save it as horror_music.mp3, and I've just found this horror type sound on another video on YouTube. Okay, the most important thing here, and this is a very important caveat, is if you are going to go live into production with this workflow, you need to make sure that you replace this video with something that's royalty free. Okay, so there's plenty of videos on YouTube. Just type in royalty free horror background music, right? You don't want any voiceover, you don't want any sound, nothing, just the background music. Okay, so I'm going to copy that, and you know it's worked because it's extracted the sound from the video. Okay, and I'm only using this because I'm doing this locally. If I was doing this on n8n's cloud, I wouldn't use this. Okay, this is not the method I'll do. So we want to execute a command, and we'll call this one download background music, and then we want to execute it once, right? And then here, just paste in the code. Okay, this code here. Okay, remember to test it and save it. Okay, and then the next step is going to be, we have all the assets now, okay, because we've got the voiceover, we've got the images, we've downloaded the images, we've downloaded the background music. Now we want to put all these assets together and create the final video. Okay, and so for that, we could just use another execute command node. I'm just going to grab the command that I have in here. So this one's a create the final video. This is what you would upload onto YouTube. Okay, and so this one here is just the FFmpeg, which is the library, the function that we use to create the video, to bring up all the assets together. There's a bit of technical information in here. If you want a complete breakdown, just copy and paste this into ChatGPT and tell it to explain it to you. But most importantly, it's just going to grab the horror_image, which is what I've created in the download image node. Right, and then I've created a horror voice audio, which is MP3, and then the last node, which was the horror music, which I downloaded it from the YouTube video, is just horror_music. Okay, and then I'm bringing it all together, and then this is just called audio. Okay, I've just given it a name of audio, and music. Okay, that's all you need to know. And then the last part of it, this is just the aspect ratio for the video, right? And then the YUV 420p is just the standardized output for the video, right? This seems to be very compatible with a lot of these video, uploading platforms like YouTube, Vimeo, etc., right? And then the output is going to be horror.mp4, right? That's what I've called it. You can call it whatever you want. Okay, so let me just copy this. I'll paste it over into here. We want to execute it once, and then let's just call this one create final video. Okay, and then the last step is, let me just level this up. The last step is we want to, I'll go back to the original, I'll show you. We want to read the file from disk. Okay, so I can basically output it to you. Okay, I can show you with a view what this looks like. Okay, so again, remember I called it horror.mp4, so I'm gonna select that. That's the file that I want to read. So let's just bring up the read write to disk. This time we want to read files from disk. Everything is as it is, except just remember to select the correct file name, right? And based on the previous node, I set it to horror.mp4. Okay, so what do I call this one? Get final video. Okay, so let's just call it get final video, and that's it. You have the entire automation built. It's using 2 AI modules, completely automated, and it will actually think up the ideas for you. Okay, now ways to improve upon this. Obviously, if you're going to production, have lots more ideas, you probably want to plug in a Google Sheet that has lots of different ideas that you can get from ChatGPT or other channels that you've kind of researched. So put all that into a Google Sheet. Second thing I'll do is just have lots of scenes ready, right? So if your video is at 10-15 minutes long, and if you remember the Dr. Nightmare channel, each scene had a different background image, right? And they just took a picture of like schools and hallways and locker rooms and that kind of stuff, right? You can create that with AI, and you should be doing that with AI, okay? And the last thing I would say is you definitely want to upload 1 video per day, okay? I'd probably upload, if I'm starting off a new channel, I'm probably going to upload, at least 2 a day, if I was going into production, okay? So if we go back to Excalidraw, we've set up the OpenRouter with MetaLlama, which is completely free. We've installed Kokoro, which is completely free for the voiceover. We've installed the YTDLP libraries inside of Docker. By the way, if you don't know how to use Docker, I've used Docker for my local hosting of NA10. If you want to know how to use and install Docker, I've got another video on that, so just go back into my channel and you can find that. And then the third thing is we've created a Together account for Flux. Okay, I'll show you how to set that up as well. Okay, so the account is free. You just sign up with a Gmail, but everything else, I'll show you how to do that. And obviously, just have fun making these videos, right? Just upload as many videos as you possibly can. That's the trick with these kind of channels. So hopefully you made it this far. And if you have, I want to thank you. If you do like this video, give me a thumbs up. But most importantly, subscribe to the channel. And go ahead, build this and start your own horror movies, horror video channel, because like I said at the start of this video, these are very lucrative. Dr. Nightmare is making anywhere between 80 to 110K a month, okay? So this is insane opportunity right now for you to build something completely automated that takes care of it for you, okay? So thanks again for watching, and hopefully I'll see you on the next video that I drop on this channel. This is the Automation Kings. I'm Sanj, and I'm signing off. Have a great one.